for a 2-minute response on each question. At the end, they will have 2 minutes for a closing statement. When answering questions, please keep responses focused on your plans, your thoughts, and what your actions will be, not those of other candidates. If the candidates do not use all the time, then we will take additional questions from the audience. The audience is asked to withhold from comments and applause during the forum to allow maximum use of our limited time. You may applaud at the end of the forum and now at the beginning as we start this first half of the forum. Please welcome the 2018 candidates for the 2 open seats for Princeton City Council in alphabetical order. Jenny Gerard, Victoria Garrett, I see. Gerald, I am so sorry. I've said it like 1,000 times before I got here. Victoria Holland and Jules Zimmer. We can applaud. We will begin by having each of the candidates make their opening statements. They will each have 2 minutes. So let's begin with Jenny.
Okay. First of all, I want to say that I'm very grateful for this opportunity to be here tonight and for the possibility of representing the city of Princeton. I've been a resident of the community for over 30 years. I'm married, have 2 children and 5 grandchildren. Our children attended and graduated from the Princeton School District. My husband is a public works director and has been a volunteer firefighter for the city of Princeton for almost 22 years. We have truly enjoyed living here and raising our family here. This is our home. During my 40-year career, I've learned many things about leadership. I've learned what it takes to be an effective leader, a strong leader, a responsible leader, a decisive leader, a caring leader, a strategic leader, and a respected leader that truly leads by example. I'm challenged every day to be these leaders. To be a good leader, you have to be able to make good decisions, the right decisions, and sometimes some really tough, difficult decisions. Sometimes decisions are easy, and sometimes they need to be analyzed and really thought through. Oftentimes, they need to be looked at from many different perspectives. I have the ability, the training, and the experience to be able to make these decisions. I have many years of experience creating and managing budgets and business plans, capital improvement plans, sales and marketing plans, and personnel development plans. I regularly analyze financial statements and expenses, looking for overages and areas to cut or improve. This experience will be very beneficial in the role of a city council member. I'm honest, I'm fair, and I would use my knowledge, my training, and my experiences in each and every decision that I would make for the city of Princeton. Not just decisions that will affect us all today, but for tomorrow and for many more years to come. Again, I thank you very much for this opportunity.
Victoria.
Hi, my name is Victoria Helene. I'm also known as Vegetable Vicky and Pioneer Vicky in the community. I've been here approximately 30 years. I raised 4 boys in this community, the A-team, Andrew, Anthony, Aaron, and Austin, who graduated out of Princeton High School, and one who went further on to Job Corps. I have been volunteering and working in this community since we landed. That's how I created my Vegetable Vicky and Pioneer Vicky. I also have been a council member for 14 years from 2002 to 2016. And the last 4 years, I was the acting mayor in the Princeton community. I have been an EDA commissioner for the city of Princeton for approximately a dozen years, and I've been 2 years on the planning commission. I have traveled across the state from corner to corner with the Coalition of Greater Minnesota Cities, as well as the League of Minnesota Cities. I have been on the board of directors for the coalition. It was approximately 8 years when I served as a council member. And I lobbied every single year at the Capitol on hot button issues of transportation, bonding bills, local government aid, and all types of infrastructure that is needed in our local area. Working with the coalition has been an asset to this community as they focus on greater Minnesota and what we need in this location. I have networked and met a lot of elected officials across the state, as well as people from Congress and our local state representatives, both all the legislature. So not only did I focus on just our local legislators down at the state capitol, but I branched out and did the ripple effect with other legislators from different districts, because I figure if we are strong here and strong in other districts, we are strong as a state. I have a lot of experience with learning and educating myself on the needs of our community, and I have resources available to where I can tap into getting that information. Thank you.
Jules?
Well, I'd like to thank the Chamber of Commerce for hosting this event this evening, and thank all of you folks for coming out tonight. Along with me is my wife, 42 years, Julie, you're sitting right up front here. I'm a city resident for 40 years and have served on the Princeton City Council for the past 6 years. I have served on the City Planning Commission, and I am currently on the EDA Commission and the Park Board. I was a Princeton police officer in the late 70s until I was elected Mille Lacs County Sheriff and took office in 1987. After 3 successful elections for sheriff, I assumed the position of North Branch Police Chief in 1996. I remained in that position until I retired after 30 years of law enforcement in 2006. I have always been involved in my community, and that didn't stop after I retired. I co-manage Solheim Veterans Field. I coached VFW baseball. I coached 9th grade baseball. I've coached high school soccer. I managed the Princeton Panthers, and I worked in the Princeton Public Schools as a substitute for the paraprofessionals. In 2013, I was appointed to the City Council and subsequently ran for office 2 years later and was elected to serve a 4-year term representing the citizens of Princeton. I still want to be involved in my community, so that's why I'm running for re-election. Someone told me a while ago not to put myself on a shelf only to expire, but continue to serve in a manner that only experience can bring to benefit a community. Again, thank you, Chamber. And thanks all of you folks for coming out. It means a lot. It shows you're really interested in your community. Thank you.
All right, thank you, candidates. We will begin with the questions. Question number 1, what involvement with the city have you had, and how has it prepared you to serve in the best interest of the city, its residents, and its businesses? Jenny, we will begin with you, and you have 2 minutes.
Okay. You know, one of my first jobs when I was in the city of Princeton was I managed the American Inn. I managed that for about 3.5 years before I moved into regional management, which took me, you know, all over to 5 different states. So while I was a manager of the American, I was very involved in the chamber. I got involved in, for a while, they had a tourism committee that I got involved in. Besides that, you know, my husband and I have been very involved with the Princeton Fire Department, involved in raising funds for, you know, buying equipment. I was part of the women's, the fire department ladies. We raised $10,000 on a committee to buy the Kieran's Iris helmet for the department years ago. I've been involved in the parades. Trying to think, gosh, there's been so much over the years, it's hard to remember. You know, just we're really involved in church and active in the community with our church group. You know, we were involved a lot of the school marching band, you know, just raising our kids. It's hard to not get really involved in the community. You know, I've been really interested in city council, especially over the last year. So I've been attending a lot of the council meetings. I've really been kind of diving into, you know, some of the things that are going on and educating myself on, you know, a lot of the things that pertain to city council. So it's just, you know, it's a passion that I have. Like I said, we've lived here for 30 years. This is our home. And there's so many great opportunities for us to continue to grow. And I'd really like to be a part of that.
Okay, thank you. Vicki?
In my introduction, I explained or gave you a little information on the work that I did with the city at a government level for City Hall with EDA, Planning Commission, Coalition, and all those things. Throughout the years of living in the community, I've been an active volunteer, not only in the Civic Betterment Club, as well as ECRDC, East Central Regional. I have been president of the East Central Cable Commission, ensuring while I was a council member that franchise fees were indeed coming back to our community, and that we had those funds available so we can utilize them where we needed them in this community. I have been working diligently in this community for years. I started out raising my family as a volunteer, and that's why I created Pioneer Vicky and Vegetable Vicky. But then I moved on to working into the school district, into the local child care centers, becoming a special presenter as a volunteer in the middle school and the high school, doing special presentations. As my sons would come up with a subject, something I was knowledgeable or had artifacts, I would create a program or a presentation around it and then go educate into the school system. Right now, and for several years, because I did work in the child care sector, I'm currently also teaching during the day preschool classes over at the Grow With Us Child Care Center, and then I run the Princeton Teen Center. I've been actively involved in the Princeton Teen Center Family Pathways for the last 7.5 years. It seemed like it was not taking off real well the first year. I was a volunteer, and then I became an AmeriCorps Vista. I was actually running for state senate at the time, 6 years ago, and had to pull out of the race so I could become a Vista for the Teen Center, and then I run local government. So I have always been actively involved in this community as a volunteer or as a professional in the community. Thank you.
Thank you, Vicki. Jules?
Hey, well, currently I'm on city council, so I'm involved in, city business. I'm involved in the committees or the commissions and all the things that entail a city council member. But I've got to go back to 1978 when I was a Princeton police officer when I came to this town, and this was going to be a stepping stone for me. That's what the Princeton job was going to be, and I soon found out that this was going to be my home, and it is my home. I became directly involved in in the youth activities in Princeton as a youth hockey coach, youth baseball coach. And as a Princeton police officer, I gave numerous presentations to senior citizens, to businesses. I spoke on crime prevention, neighborhood crime watch. I did premise surveys for businesses. The community ed was heavily involved with the alcohol programs that they had. And then as a Mille Lacs County Sheriff, when I was elected, Princeton, I did not forget. I have the whole county, and I continued in that direction because I felt that those types of public services were so important to communicate to its people, the safety factors and all of the things that needed to be done as the Mille Lacs County Sheriff. And Princeton was very, very good to me in the elections. And I'm still grateful and thankful for the citizenship when the elections came around. I think, Julie, if I remember, Princeton was like 5-1 that put me in the office for 3 terms as your Mille Lacs County Sheriff. So I was heavily involved in the city of Princeton, and that has continued to this day, and it will continue. I really, this is my home. It's not my hometown, but I consider it my home.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Question 2. What are your thoughts on the value of the municipal liquor store? Victoria, we'll start with you.
Well, I think the municipal liquor store is very, very valuable to our community. And as I traveled across the state, like I said, I had done, for several years, there were a lot of other communities and a lot of other elected officials that I had talked to who were a little bit distraught that they themselves did not have a municipal liquor store in their communities. They saw the immense benefits that it does entail. It provides extra funding for different programs and projects that we have in our community. The money that we receive through the liquor store goes back into the community. It also can help defer tax increases on our citizens in the community when we have these major projects coming on, or new roads coming in, or a regional safety building. I mean, our regional safety building and we tried bonding bills down at the Capitol to help get that built, and that did not work. So it's through the liquor store fund that pays that bonding bill. So we did not have to raise taxes on our citizens for that most important building that we need, especially now that we have been for the past several years a decon site for Monticello in case, or heaven forbid, if there ever were a fallout. So that is beneficial to our community. The municipal liquor store also allows us to help regulate what is going on in our community as far as, things that are being sent out, customers that come in, and it provides a huge tax relief for our citizens. And so having that with us and for us, I think, is a huge benefit, just like many of the other benefits we have in our community with our airport and our golf course and just having the river here. But so I think I'm a very pro-municipal liquor store advocate, and I think it is very beneficial for all citizens to understand that the proceeds that come from that liquor store go directly back into this community, and how that has helped all of us, especially with tax relief.
Thank you, Vicki. Jules?
Well, how am I supposed to come up with something else there? But, the primary purpose of municipal liquor stores has been and currently is for control. Control is the purpose, is why liquor stores in the first place were established. Bought at one place, one control, and a governing body to make those decisions and have control of the liquor that is distributed in local communities. That was the primary reason why liquor stores. From there, it's evolved to, yes, it does generate revenue. It generates revenues that normally the city could not pay for. And at most council meetings, there's usually a request or two for funds for everything to support Jeannie Bromberg and her mentoring program, for parades and fireworks and all of the things that are difficult to fund through tax dollars. So I'm a proponent of the municipal liquor stores, provided that it's controlled and the money is used for good causes. And Vicki was right. The current Princeton police and fire department is solely funded by the proceeds from our liquor store. So it's a valuable asset for the community, and but we need to still have that local control. Thank you.
Thank you. Jenny?
Well, I was hoping you weren't going to call me first each time, but this time I kind of wish you would have, because they took all my answers. But
That's tough.
anyways, I'll just reiterate the same thing. I agree with everything they said. The municipal liquor store, all the revenue that is generated is currently paying the debt for the public safety building, which is huge for taxpayers in Princeton. The funds are used to help reduce city tax levy by putting profits back in the general fund. It also helps to allow local government assurance that only those of legal age are purchasing alcohol in the city. It provides some jobs for people in town. I just think it's a really great asset for the city to have.
Okay, thank you. Question 3, putting yourself in the role of a city council member. We have a 2-part question. No. What do you consider a conflict of interest? And what are your thoughts on how to handle conflicts of interest or possible overlapping obligations? Jules, we will start with you.
A conflict of interest is mainly it's if you can monetarily benefit from decisions that you would make as a council member. And that would be one major conflict of interest. if you're benefiting personally by a decision that you're making on the city council. Now, I was faced with this that I was struggling with a few months ago, and it pertained to the concession operation at the ball field. And the issue on the topic was, do you allow food vending trucks to sell their product in the park when the concession stand is open in the ballpark? And as you know, I'm heavily involved in the ballpark. So the question was that a conflict of interest for me? And it turns out I'm not. It's not. Because I am not benefiting personally. I'm promoting the parks, and that's why one of the reasons why I'm on the city council is to make the parks better, and the proceeds from the concessions make the parks better and that sort of thing. So what was the second part of the question? Did I explain what the conflict of interest is?
Yep, it was just your thoughts on how to handle the conflicts of interest.
Oh, if
Possible
I had a real conflict of interest, I would just abstain from voting on that topic. I wouldn't vote on it.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Jenny?
Again, I agree with Jules. I've done some research on conflict of interest because I was asked if there was a conflict of interest with myself running for city council because my husband is a public works director. So I've done a lot of research into it, and I did check into it before I decided to run. But it's the same thing, a conflict of interest would be anything that, I would benefit from financially, by voting, for something that would benefit me. So the only way to get around it would be one, to just announce that I need to abstain from voting on this particular item because it could be considered a conflict of interest. And then I would just have to abstain from voting on that particular thing.
Okay, thank you. Victoria?
Same as both of them said, conflict of interest is something you'd want to step down from. You don't want to vote. And you may promote it, but you're not going to vote on it. I have not myself personally been involved in a conflict of interest either here, and I know we have them also at the coalition. We signed waivers down there as well. If we're going to benefit either financially, physically, or in any way, shape, or form from whatever decisions are made or whatever direction that we take. So I have been on the council when there have been conflicts of interest where council members have stepped down over the course of the years. And so it's very easy to rectify something like that because we're a small community. We're kind of like Cheers, everybody knows your name type of thing. So, I mean, if there's a conflict of interest and we're not aware of it, our constituents certainly are. And they will be there. They will be going up to bat either for or against. And so we haven't really had a real problem with that I've noticed in this community, as possibly other communities. But I think that is the best way to handle it, is to just abstain, step down. And we have a lot of checks and balances, and it's called our constituents. And they're very helpful with, letting us know, when they think something is in our best interest or in theirs, whether it be a road project or something else. So, yeah, that's pretty much how I feel, the same way these two feel.
Okay,
Good job.
great. Halfway through. 3 more questions. And this one is a 3-part question.
Three.
That 2-part one.
So do we get
Very
6
good.
minutes then?
Right,
each?
yeah.
No.
Three parts.
What are your plans to support area businesses? How do you personally support community businesses? What were the last 2 events you participated in locally? And Jenny, we will start with you.
Okay, so plans to support area businesses, plans to support community businesses.
How
do
do
you
you
do?
personally support community businesses?
Okay. And what was the last one?
What were the last 2 events you participated in locally?
Okay. Let's see. So plans to support area. We need to cultivate a strong and diverse community leadership that's inclusive, collaborative, and connected. We need to have strategic planning. We need to join together with local stakeholders and join forces with our neighbors, city government, churches, schools, civic clubs, Chamber of Commerce. What we need to do is create a crossroads where leaders can come together and collaborate to accomplish, shared community objectives. We need to find out what is everybody's concerns and what do we want to accomplish and what areas do we need to work together. Industrial development is key, and I think that's a really appropriate strategy to look at. So plans to support, area businesses. I think we really need to promote, marketing and tourism in our city. We need to foster local purchases and spending. I think that's huge. How do I support the community businesses? We shop in town. We do, 99% of our shopping in town. We shop at the liquor store. We shop at the local grocery stores. We shop, as much in town as absolutely possible. And I think, we need to make that be a priority for people if we want our businesses to continue to be successful.
Okay.
We really need to.
Okay. Just finish your last sentence and then the time is up. Sorry.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yes. I know.
Okay.
All right, Vicki.
Could you please repeat the question? I have a hard time writing, so I didn't take notes.
What are your plans to support area businesses? How do you personally support community businesses? And what were the last 2 events you participated in locally?
Okay. So supporting area businesses is something I'm very actively pursuing at this point and have been all the years that I have been here. I mean, one of the things that I like to do, and I've taken all of my children to the last 30 years, is every open house, every community event, get out there, introduce my kids. And now that my kids have grown, I'm doing it with the Teen Center youth. And I have been doing that with them for the last 7 years. Bringing them to the community events, whether they be, an open house for any particular thing or a groundbreaking ceremony or anything, they volunteer. If these events in the community and these businesses have an event going on, I will try to get my youth to actually volunteer at these events. It's to help them is the marketing, to promote our community more so than just, we have a wonderful business environment and business climate here, but to also let the world know that we have all these other amenities that are supporting this community as well, from our golf course to our river to, our hospital, regional hospital. We have a regional library here. We have our safety building. We have all these wonderful things. And to support them, I shop here. I actually went to the AC and air conditioning event last Friday and brought a bunch of youth there who had a blast. It was wonderful for their grand opening. And I had won a gift card. And I went and picked it up today, and it was so exciting. I was on my way to go shopping here local. And then I said, I'll pick it up later. I'll be there, sometime this afternoon. I turned around and I went, wait a minute. What better way to put that gift card back into this community than to shop local? And that's what I actually told them when I went in there to pick it up. And I promote that with all the volunteers and the youth that I work with and people I run in the community to actively support, this community. So those are some of the, I do a lot of the events here. I can't even think of the last 2.
Thank you, Vicki.
I think my granddaughters personally could practically buy Santa Lucia's ice cream shop at this point. We shop locally. But that's not to say, that I buy everything in Princeton, to be honest. But if there's something that I can buy in Princeton that I don't have to drive to St. Cloud to get, or down Elk River, Menards, or whatever the case might be, I will get it here and support our local business people and business community. I personally believe that if we can improve things like our parks and complete the Great Northern Trail and improve the camping at Riverside Park and Reby Park, if we can generate people to come to these places, that they will end up supporting the local business community. They will leave the parks and they will go to get that ice cream after the games, and they will, people will shop. If you can get them to stop here, they will shop. And that's how I believe we can improve the business community, by improving our infrastructure, by improving our parks and our trails and all of these things that can get people into our community put Princeton on the map, as I like to say, and have it a destination where they go. Used to do that years ago with my boys. We used to put the bikes in the trailer and drive down to the trails down in Champlain and Coon Rapids. And when we were down there, we ate down there and we shopped down there. That's what I'd like to see in Princeton. Get people in, and then they'll support the local businesses. The last events that I attended, I was at the Public Safety Day at our new Public Safety building, and I was at the I call it National Night Out, but it's not called National Night Out here. It's the can't think of the name, but it's National Night Out.
Is it the block party?
Block party. Block party?
Yeah, we were there. I was there.
Anyway,
you.
was there.
Thank you, Jules.
Did I miss?
No, that was it. Good, thank you.
Yeah.
Next question. What are your plans to help the city reach 5,000 plus residents? Victoria, we'll start with you.
Well, I think we're kind of moving a little bit towards that right now. We have some residential developments that are earmarked to go up very near in the future here. One of them is West Birch Estates, and they will be building very soon off of West Branch Street over by the fairgrounds. That will bring more residents. That's geared to be a 16-unit apartment complex with up to 4 bedrooms in some of the units to be able to house families. So it'll be affordable housing. We're also working on a 55 plus seniors development, which is going to be over, towards the wastewater treatment plant in that area. So we're bringing in more, and we have more development going on with some of the areas, some of the little housing developments in our community that have, slowly and have been progressing towards more development, putting up more townhouses and single family dwellings. So I think that does help. Another option or avenue that the city could follow to get up to 5,000 is, if there's any chance of expansion within the city limits, to bring our borders out in any way, shape, or form for future development. And I know we have a comprehensive plan, and our comprehensive plan usually gets rejuvenated about every 10 years. And we earmark areas on that comprehensive plan for that future growth and development, because that does happen. And people do retire, people do want to sell, and with that can go, it can go for further development. So I think that's one avenue that we utilize, is that we have these residential housing developments in progress right now, and we will have many more in the future.
Thank you, Victoria. Jules?
Well, I can't have any more kids, so that's not going to help.
Grandkids, there you go.
Grandkids.
Get them all to move here.
It's questionable too. But anyway, Vicki mentioned the West Birch project that's going on in West Branch Street. That'll be 16 units. The Sherburne Lakes development, 55 manufactured homes owned by the golf course, by the wastewater treatment plant in that area there. There's another development that a developer is talking to the city about on the north end of town by the old sales barn up there. That could generate some more housing and population. As far as taking in more land to hit the magic number of 5,000 so that we can get so many more dollars or get so much for our streets and that sort of thing. The city will have to weigh the benefit of that versus what we would have to provide to do that. If it's not as simple as just saying, hey, we're going to take this land here and put that there. We're gonna do that, and then our population. What if you do that? You have to still provide that. You have to provide the services for that. You have to provide police. You have water, sewer, and the expense might be too great to consider that. Those are things that the city has to look at. The magic number, is 5,000 because you get more state aid, but let's get there in a reasonable way and not exceed what we are capable of doing, I guess, is what I'd like to say.
Thank you, Jules. Jay?
So, small rural towns are struggling to survive in today's increasing urban like, we have a lot of, the younger generations are moving to larger cities where there's more shopping and things like that. So as, the states keep urbanizing, we keep losing population. So 2/3 of rural communities in the U.S. lost jobs from 2007 to 2017. So I think in order to keep people here and wanting to come here, we need to keep working on increasing our, industrial development, which will bring jobs, which will attract people as well, and make people want to stay instead of, commuting to the cities, and then people get tired of the commuting, and then they move to the cities and those kinds of things. What Joel said earlier about parks and trails, those boost local businesses, and outdoor activities and amenities are really important when people are thinking about where they want to raise their kids and those kinds of things. So I think we really need to focus on continuing to improve all of our parks and trails and outdoor things, so that we can attract and retain residents and jobs.
Okay, thank you. And the last question of the night for you. What is your vision for Princeton in the next 4 years, and how will you help turn that vision into reality? And Jules, we will start with you.
The things that I envision Princeton in the next 4 years. One, I'd like to see Arrow Business District that's out by the Public Safety Building. Some of those lots need to be filled. The city has been working on that for years and years. I'd like to see Riverfront. That'd be where Aldi's is going in. I'd like to see lots bought and businesses located at that location. I would like to see the expansion of Reby Park. The city has purchased an additional acreage to have a campground. I think I envision that happening, and it will happen. And again, that's part of the plan. Bring people in a destination where people want to go, a nice camping area. Improve Riverside Park as well with more camping, updated camping. People will not stay down in the park. They will come up out of the park and frequent the businesses. The Sherburne Lake development, I'm hoping that will take off, and we'll see progress. We'll see progress with that. The Great Northern Trail is so important for this community. I feel it is. The completion of that'd be the trail by Crystal Cabinets that goes south all the way, then it would go north to McDonald's, to the behind the football field, all the way to Mark Park. 9,500 feet of trail for people to come in to ride it with their bikes, or drive their bikes, or walk, whatever the case might be. That's what I see in the next 4 years as happening with Princeton. I also see a fishing pier. This fishing pier is going to come to reality thanks to the Princeton Rotary Club and the taxpayers of Princeton down in Riverside Park, a fishing pier. I don't know, go on with that.
Oh,
All right, well, and your time's up, so I'm sorry, but we would love to hear more now.
Yeah.
Jenny, your turn.
So there's not a lot more to add to that other than what Jules has already said. Those are all great things that are in the works that, obviously we want to see come to fruition. And a lot of times I get asked things like, well, what are you going to do to bring downtown back? It's like Princeton is dying. Well, Princeton isn't dying. We're still growing. It's just these small towns don't necessarily grow in the downtown. It's hard to keep downtowns, relevant and alive as the infrastructure ages and things like that. But Princeton is growing, but we're growing on the outskirts of Princeton, not necessarily in the downtown part of Princeton. So just, I'd love to see that continue to bloom and, obviously to fill our downtown. The businesses that are sitting empty, and it's finding things that are relevant nowadays, whether it's, these little destination places where people go to for the occasional shops and things like that. Just figuring out kind of what we need to do to get those businesses to come to town and to stay into town. But, other than what Jewel said, there's a lot of things going on. There's a lot of exciting things coming, and especially with, the parks and trails and things like that, which, I think is going to have a big impact over the next 4 years for the city.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Victoria?
Wow, you guys said it all, didn't you? Fantastic.
Tough being last sometimes, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. I agree with what both of them have said. We do have a thriving and expanding industrial park. And that is something that is huge in our community. It helps keep this community alive, and it provides so many job opportunities for the people in this community, for the members of this community and the surrounding area. And to locate or expand our industrial park and maybe find some more land for industrial park expansion, I think is very key and important and should be high on our radar, as well as all these other avenues and, the trail systems and things like that to bring people to the community. And our downtown corridor, we do need to assist in helping our downtown corridor with, whether it be a, facade refacing or, finding a unique character for our community, which is something I think we need to do. When our hockey team goes to the playoffs down in Minneapolis, the Star and Tribune has the first paragraph talking about how great our hockey team is. And then the rest of the article is all about Casey Ramirez and what happened here in the 1980s. Well, that's not the kind of identity or character we want people to see us as. So I think if we could, collectively together as a community, as a whole, focus on something that could identify us solely as unique, I think that is key and important as well. And then it will also help us with our expansions in Riverside Park with our pier and our Reeve Park and, all of the things we got going on in our parks, like our Splash Park over at Mark Park. I think all of those things will help fall into place, but it's important to find a character and an identity for our community.
Thank you, Victoria.
Yes.
Thank you all for those answers. Each of the candidates will now be given the opportunity to make closing statements. So you will each have 2 minutes. Jules, we will begin with you.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Chamber of Commerce. And thank you all of you for attending tonight. I'm running for re-election because I want to continue to be involved in the progress that the city has made in the last few years. There are many projects that will continue with or without me as a member of the City Council. However, if you choose to re-elect me, I can assure you that I will make the best possible decisions that are based on facts and which benefit our community as a whole. I believe we need to continue to make our city a place on the map where people want to visit and live. We can do this by improving our parks and infrastructure as well as our city department services. We must provide our police, fire, public works, and other city departments the necessary tools and support needed to do their jobs. By doing this, we'll be making Princeton a desirable, safe, and enjoyable destination to work, live, and visit. Princeton was going to be a stepping stone for me and my family back in 1978. We had opportunities to move on, but there was always something about Princeton that kept us here. In 1996, before I accepted the North Branch Police Department position, I was asked if I would move to North Branch. My response was no, because my heart and my home is in Princeton. And folks, it still is. It still is. I will conclude with this. During my time on the City Council, people have said that the position is a thankless one. I disagree, because I feel it is a thankful one. Thankful because you, the people, have given me the trust and confidence to vote on matters of importance on your behalf. Someone once told me when I was running for sheriff that they wouldn't vote for me because I didn't ask them. Well, folks, I'm asking you tonight for your vote. Thank you.
Thank you, Jules. Jenny?
Great. So I didn't prepare a speech. I just kind of wanted to close on my thoughts after all of the questions tonight. Some great questions. Some of them are really tough to come up with some different answers, but I'm the new face here. But I think when I think about running for city council, I think about you know, leadership in a city, I think, is like leadership in a large business. You know, you've got a budget, you've got to follow, you've got capital improvement plans you have to figure out, you've got personnel issues you have to deal with, you've got expenses you have to keep an eye on, and those kinds of things. So I think with my business experience, I would bring that to the table, along with, you know, decision making. You know, all those things that I kind of talked about at the beginning of tonight. And I think I would come with some new ideas and some fresh ideas and maybe some different perspectives. And I would just love the opportunity to be a part of this. And if you vote for me, I would not let you down.
Thank you, Jenny. Victoria?
Well, very good, both of you. That was wonderful. I want to thank the chamber for hosting this evening, and all of you for coming to have those concerns and that care for the community. You know, people say, well, where's your grassroots? You know, I've heard that question throughout my life, and my answer to them is my grassroots are right here. This is where my 4 boys have raised me, and this is where I call home. When I think of grassroots, I'm not thinking of where I grew up and where I went to school. I'm thinking of where I truly invested my whole heart and soul into this community, coming here, learning about the history of this community, teaching it through the Mille Lacs County Historical Society as Pioneer Vicky. It was with great pleasure that I was able to do that, to learn about this community years ago, and then to go and teach it, starting at the Pioneer School, and then carry that with me throughout the entire school district, throughout all of these years, and I continue to do that. To get our youth invested, and the children and youth invested in this community, is primary to me, because I figure if they volunteer and invest in the community that they're in, and help out in any capacity that they can, no matter where they go in this world, I hope they will invest in those communities that they call their grassroots or their future. And that is very, very important to me, is to do that. As a community or as a council member, I will do my very best to make the right decisions, to make sure we plan growth and development that is smart growth and development that will be sustainable now and throughout the future, and that we are not going to put ourselves in any type of predicament where, you know, it turns into a problem. You want to make your roads wider when you do developments and things like that. So you have to have that vision. The future vision is what it's all about. So please, if you vote for me, I will carry that future vision for you. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you all. This concludes the first half of the public forum. You obviously already thanked you, but thank you, Jenny, Victoria, and Jules, for your participation. You may take a seat in the audience as we prepare for the second half of the forum.
Right up to our time for the first session. So we're going to have them step out. We're going to bring our mayoral candidate, and Paul Whitman. So they can come up here. Again, if you have any questions that you have thought of during this time, please make sure you step out the door and write them on a piece of paper, and then I'll be back in the room again so that you get those to me.
Julie and I have a problem with that. I'll ask her. Okay.
This is Brad.
Good job.
Waters here, it doesn't look like they use those. So you have extra waters. And thank you very much for offering up your service. Yeah, absolutely.
All right. Once again, we're going to get started with the second phase of this public forum, question and answer. Again, thank you for holding your responses or comments or applause until the end. And for those people just tuning in for the mayoral candidates forum, we have Sandy Miller, who is going to be the timer for this event. She is one of the chamber's board of directors. And for our moderator, we have Tracy Bailey. She is the 2018 Princeton Chamber President. So with that, Tracy.
All right, thank you, Karen. We will be using the same format for this half. of the form with 2 additional questions, so there'll be 8 total. So please welcome, as Karen mentioned, the 2018 Princeton mayoral candidates in alphabetical order, Brad Schumacher and Paul Whitcomb. We will begin by having each of the candidates making their opening statements. They will each have 2 minutes. Let's begin with Brad.
Thanks to the chamber and thank you guys all for coming. I think that the amount of people sitting in the room and for the people on the internet shows the response of an active community and people who want to see our community work together. I'm running for mayor because I believe in our community's potential. I believe there's a lot of potential right here in our city. Am I wrong?
You're right. I'm just making sure that we can hear you.
Okay. Is that better? I want to make sure that there's untapped potential right here in our community. I do believe that the growth that people are seeing south of the border of Princeton wants to come and do business right here in Princeton. I want to help make that happen right here locally and on the Mille Lacs County side of our community. It is very important as we, the people of Princeton, we can repair everything that has possibly gone on with Mille Lacs County on the north side by growth and development right here and growing our tax base in the city of Princeton. I want to work towards doing that. I did give everybody a packet, and for everybody else online, this packet will be downloaded as a PDF that anybody can access at that time. I thank you for listening, and I thank you all for attending tonight and then also watching on the internet.
Okay, thanks the chamber and everyone in the audience for coming tonight. Let me begin with how deep my roots are in the city of Princeton. My grandparents moved into this town in the 1800s. They lived on the north end of town. My parents were both raised and born on the north end of town. My children and I attended school K through 12. I have lived in this city for 27 years now. The only time I was away from Princeton in my adult life has been the 4 years I was away from serving in the armed forces. I believe that this city is in the growing process. We can see that with the Quick Trip coming, the Aldi's coming, Premier Real Estate Services now, Ace Heating and Air Conditioning that just moved into our downtown. We continue to grow, and there's more unlimited growth out there. There's people looking at Princeton. So we will continue to work with those people and bring them into our city. I believe that our neighbors to the north and our neighbors to the south are willing to work with the city and come in. I've had recent visits with both township citizens that have showed a lot of interest in the city of Princeton expanding out to their areas. So I'm looking forward to the next few years and moving this city forward.
All right. Thank you, Brad. Thank you, Paul. We will begin with the questions. What involvement with the city have you had, and how has it prepared you to serve the best interest of the city, its residents, and its businesses? Brad, we will begin with you.
My involvement with our community has really started with Baldwin Township. I was at Baldwin Township chairman for 3 years. It's a community just south of our city. That has worked its way towards building a relationship or trying to build a relationship with our city. That has not happened. The city has done everything they possibly can to work towards doing it on their own and not working together with our neighboring and local townships. I have been, as a town board chairman, for some of you that don't know, a town board chairman is the economic development director. It's the chairman of the community. They go through the checks, they meet all the businesses, and they meet all the residents. They lead the township with just 2 people, the township clerk and the town board chairman, for all the time between the 2 weeks of meetings. That experience has brought me to build relationships. I truly believe a community grows when it builds its relationships, not only within its borders, but with its neighbors, both on the north and the south side. We do better when we do it together.
Thank you, Brad. Paul?
I've served 6 years as your mayor, 14 years on the city council before that, about 12 years on the EDA. I've been on the airport board and the fire advisory board. The idea that the city doesn't work outside of our borders, we have tried continually to do so. Recently, there was a a project that's going in south of town, south of town, north of County Road 2, that when Baldwin Township found out that that process was moving forward, or there was a preliminary idea of how to loop the water around, they came straight to our city administrator and said, there's no way that'll ever happen. So that shows you what we're up against when we go to try to talk with the townships. Now, however, since that time, as I said before, I have been talking to people in Princeton Township and Baldwin Township who are more than interested in the city expanding out to serve them.
Okay, thank you. Number 2, what are your thoughts on the value of the municipal liquor store?
Starting with me?
Paul, yes, sorry.
What are the values? As you heard earlier, the values are numerous. Thankfully for the municipal liquor store, we were able to build a public safety building using no tax dollars. We attempted to go to the legislature and testify to get the money, but the legislature actually, it went into the bill. Governor Pawlenty shot it down. So we worked around that and found a new way to fund that building. We are able to fund different groups, be it Civic Betterment Club, be it the chamber with money. This year, we were able to give the chamber some money to bring the moving wall into Princeton. That project, if you didn't have the chance to get out there and see it, you really missed something. It was really, really something that was special and made a great effort that people came to Princeton and saw what our community is and can be like. So having a municipal liquor store is one very special way that we're able to keep all these events, because you can't use city taxpayer money to fund anything outside of giving money to Paws Up For You or Rough Start Rescue or any of them. It has to come from a fund other than city taxpayers. So it comes from the municipal liquor store.
Thank you. Brad?
I believe in free markets. Our community is based on having a municipal liquor store. That is the funding source for multiple things that you've heard the other 4 individuals talk about. That's the only way that our city is able to fund those things. It's built and designed around our municipal liquor store. It has to stay, and it is a local way to control liquor. Obviously, with Old Town Liquor in Princeton Township, it's not that far away. You don't have all the control of all the alcohol that's sold in our community, but it's close. So that's the way it is, and that's the way it's going to stay.
Okay, thank you. Putting yourself in the role of the mayor, we have a 2-part question. What do you consider a conflict of interest, and what are your thoughts on how to handle conflict of interest or possible overlapping obligations? Brad, start with you.
On a conflict of interest, I won't have any conflict of interest. I can't foresee that would be something that would come up. If there was a conflict of interest between some way that I would profit from our city or making a decision, I would abstain from voting. I wouldn't do that. And if there was somebody else in the city council that potentially had that same conflict of interest or a conflict of interest, I'd ask them to refrain from voting on that. No different than one of the other council members had said, we are governed by our constituents. Our constituents see what goes on. They're well aware of our businesses that we own and the businesses that we operate. I think that, for what's here, I believe everybody's super responsible and wouldn't vote themselves on a conflict of interest.
Conflict of interest is sometime when you could make monetary to your own pocket through a vote or through a discussion. Actually, what I would do, or what any other council member should do if that moment arises, is they should really step down from the council table, take a seat in the audience. At that time, they can speak to it, but they cannot have a discussion as a council member. So that's just how I would do it. So.
Okay, thank you. Next question, this is the 3-part question. What are your plans to support area businesses? How do you personally support community businesses? And what were the last 2 events you participated in locally? Paul?
What was the first one again, please?
What are your plans to support area businesses?
Support area businesses. We continually look for ways to make this city friendly. I've heard the story at a mayor's conference I was at. One of the greatest things that happened was patron came into a gas station, purchased something, made a comment about being in town, and the store clerk smiled to him and said, "Why don't you try this restaurant downtown if you want a great piece of pie and a cup of coffee?" So if all of us work together, whether it be storekeepers, city council members, just regular citizens, and promote our city as a great place to come and shop, come and play. What have I done to support our local businesses? I shop locally. I would say 99% of the time I do shop in town. The last two events I've been to numerous ones. I've been to the last two grand openings we've had in town. I've been to the public safety building annual thing they have. I've been to the block party. I've been to the wall.
Thank you, Paul. Brad?
I think the best thing that we can do to support our businesses is provide services that are affordable for the businesses. Number one, being property taxes, being mindful of the spending that we do in our city council, and also mindful of the price of utilities in town. These are two huge factors when businesses come to do business here and when businesses come to stay in our community. I think that the city is best served to stay out of the way of growing businesses and to work with them in the best way that suits them instead of the city dictating how and when and how they do their business. Like I said before, I believe in free markets. I believe when government stays out of the way of the people will succeed. And people do that. We see it happen in the South. We see it happen whether you're in Elk River, Zimmerman, Baldwin. We can have that happen right here in Princeton with new leadership. The last two events that I had attended right here in our community, I went to the Moving Wall, and I have been working on knocking on every single person's door in our community to meet them and go through the process of talking about new leadership for our community.
Thank you. What are your plans to help the city reach 5,000 plus residents? Brad?
I don't have a plan to reach 5,000 residents. It's never been my plan. It has never been. My commitment to our community was to work to build our communities and join them together. In the packet, I brought a packet and I gave it to everybody. When I was the leader of Baldwin Township, we consistently tried to work with the city of Princeton. Princeton, this mayor, they won't work with us. The city of Princeton, when you try to grow yourself and do it alone, we consistently hear the exact same process. How are we going to get to 5,000? How are we going to get to 5,000? In my mind, this community is 11,000 residents. We're just not equally recognized as so. When you go to any event, if you go to the football game or if you go to a volleyball game, all of the parents get along perfectly. If your kids are working together in sports, they get along. You know who doesn't get along? 8 elected officials. I will bridge the gap to make our community 11,000 residents strong. The people of Baldwin are not scared of anything in this community except for the excessive price of utilities and the way the utility company treats the individuals here in our community. They watched what happened up on 7th Street when we expanded the school. All those people got hit with huge assessments. Out on West Branch, the same thing. The people out on West Branch got hit with huge assessments. When you can work together with your neighboring community, we will be one community strong. Just like when you go to a basketball game, volleyball game, any sporting event at Princeton High School, all of us parents get along. We just need the government officials to do so. I will bridge that gap and we will work together.
Thanks, Brad. Paul?
So as we're closer to 5,000, I think, than any of us know. And as future growth happens, we have to be also mindful of the cost involved with growth. So if we expand too fast, at what cost to the taxpayers, whether it be in the township or ours? How do we assess somebody in a township that has a 2.5 acre lot if we have to start paving past their road? That gets to be quite an expensive bill for that landowner. And now, if they're going by city policy, now their 2.5 acres needs to be mowed. Before, they didn't have to mow 2.5 acres. Now we do. So yeah, we're a lot closer to 5,000, I think, and I don't think it's going to take long to get there. I really believe it'll be soon.
Thank you. How would you, as mayor, work with the landowner outside of city limits seeking to develop their property? Paul?
We go out there with mindful of costs involved. So if we go out there and somebody wants to come into the city, we give them all the information they need to understand what the costs are going to be involved and what that cost to them, you know, could do to their land prices. What are they going to need to get for their land to build their homes? So we give them all this information so that they know coming in ahead of time that so many homes will have to be put on that parcel of property to make it cost effective for them.
Thank you, Paul.
I'm glad that he brought up cost, and I'm glad that he brought up process of splitting land and dividing land. In our township, in the past 18 months, with Baldwin Township, they built 91 brand new homes. People are moving to our community. They're just not moving inside the city limits because the cost is too expensive. When they talk to the mayor and they say, well, here's the cost, this is what he does. He gives them a packet, says, go here, this is what it's going to cost. And that same developer then goes to the township. On the township side, we give them a different packet and say, we will work with you to help you build great homes right here in our community because that's what people want. And the town board chairman, whether it was me or it's Jay Swanson or it's Greg Anderson in Princeton Township, they work with you to get the job done. They don't just hand you a packet and walk out the door. They call, they follow up. My commitment is to grow our community right here. It is growing everywhere but inside the city limits. When we talk about in a 16-unit apartment building going on in West Branch, we don't need any more low-income housing. What we need is good jobs, good housing. People want to work here. They also want to live here. There's no question. Just go south of here. They want to live here. They want to live in Pease. They're building new homes in Pease, and you wouldn't have believed that a few years ago. But those same people, they shop here, they work here, and they want to be here. We have to have city leadership that will let them build in our community.
Thank you. And this is a three-part question. What experience do you have with annexation? Does it have to be adversarial? And would you support a property owner's request to be annexed into the city? Brad, we'll start with you.
I only got the annex. What's the other one? I'm taking notes, sorry.
Does it have to be adversarial? And would you support a property owner's request to be annexed into the city?
So one, on the annex property thing, Paul and I had already worked on this before with a business that got built in the township and then had got annexed into the city over the threat of Princeton Public Utilities. No, I'm not against annexation. I came in and I spoke about it. I wanted to make sure in the annexation part that they were going to be able to handle the septage coming out of the new business because our city already turns away a business's septic and sends it off County Road 12 and sends a septic down to Zimmerman every week, every time. It's been happening for years. So that was my question. If our city services can handle it, yes, we should work together to go through the annexation process. It does not have to be bad. And if a landowner wants to be in the city, yes. And if a landowner doesn't want to be in the city, kind of like when Princeton Township sued our mayor to get this land back off First Street, it didn't have to be a big fight and a big lawsuit, but that's what it got turned into with our leadership. New leadership will bring in new ideas, willing to work with our neighbors. I rest assured that is my commitment to you in this room. I will work with our neighbors in rebuilding the relationships that our mayor has not worked on.
Paul.
Annexation, I'm all for annexation. Does it have to be adversarial? Absolutely doesn't have to be. Every time we've annexed into a township, we've had a room full of people that are against us taking some of their land. You know, I hate to do it, but some of the things Brad said is, I was never sued by Princeton Township to put land back in. Matter of fact, I worked with Greg Anderson to detach the property. Very easily done. He worked it out, and I was a proponent of him taking it back out of landowners' rights. If a landowner wants to come in, if a landowner doesn't want to stay in, so be it. You know, they have that right.
Thank you. This is a two-part question. Do you have a plan to cut the budget while reducing sewer charges? How do you intend to improve the sewer system and pay for it? Paul, we'll start with you.
Sewer system, how to reduce, well, we've got a loan out there on our new wastewater treatment facility that needs to be paid. And that's why our service charge is out there, is to help reduce that debt over so many years. It has to be paid off. I'm not sure what areas of town we're talking about that need new sewer or whatever, but I do know some areas that are in definite need of that. We are working very hard in our capital improvement program to put money away so we can replace sewer lines throughout the city as we can afford it.
Thank you. Brad?
The process, when new developments come in, the developer is responsible to put the sewer lines in. The developer is responsible for the hookup costs to build their new development in our community. When you let new development come into our community, they will pay money that can be used to offset the cost in rebuilding some of our other sewer lines. It's through the WAC and SAC program. I think the problem that we have, or the problem that we see, is that we've seen government keep growing, but we haven't seen our population keep growing. You haven't seen our tax base keep growing right here within the city limits. If the city allows people to come in, build homes, build businesses here, we will reap the benefits of the new revenue that you see. When I was the chairman of Baldwin Township, I bring that back up. We brought in 91 new homes. When you do that, you increase the amount of taxation in your community so you can spend that money in different areas of your community. When there's a brand new home and a brand new development, those tax revenue dollars go back into a different development that's a little bit older, and you can work on investing that money the best way the council and the mayor will see fit. But that's the difference, is you have to allow new development to come in, because government just creeps up. The budget keeps creeping up with COLA. Cost of living increases keep going up. And that's why we see our utility rates go up, and you see the budget work its way up, is because we have more employees that are a little bit older and they all get a little cost of living increases, but we're not increasing the community size. And so that's why the people that have been here for a long time keep having to pay for the growth of government and not the growth of our community.
Thank you. Well, that was all of the 8 questions that were prepared. We do have time, and do we want to do the closing statements first? Okay. So we will conclude with each of you having 2 minutes to do a closing statement, and then there should be time left. And if there are questions, we will ask those questions. So, Paul, we will start with you.
As I said before, I have been your mayor for 6 years, and that 6 years we have seen growth, and we have seen the best usage of your tax dollars that we can do. There is continual, some of the great things we have done since I've been mayor is we've got a K-9 unit going. We've got into the Sherburne County Drug Task Force, which has made an enormous difference in our community. We are working diligently with AT&T to put a tower out here, and on that tower will be a system so that our public safety personnel can talk inside buildings where now they can't talk with the 800 megahertz radios they have. 800 megahertz radios came about during 9/11, and it was great in theory, but in reality, it doesn't work in a building with lots of steel, lots of concrete. In all our efforts to continue to bring more development into the city is somewhat landlocked to where we can no longer get a lot of housing left. So we're not going to get a 91 home development here in Princeton, not unless somebody from one of the townships decides to bring some of their property into the city. And yes, at that point in time, that developer will be paying for their sewer and water connections and electric out to their buildings, and also the streets. They'll be paying for that. So yeah, that's not a whole big cost for the city. But as we grow, we have to remember to stay mindful of the other costs involved, because once we move a long ways out, police protection gets more sparse. So it's hiring more police officers. It's hiring maybe more fire department members. It all takes, so you got to be very wise with how you move forward in developing.
Thank you, Paul. Brad?
Thanks again for having me. This community is my home. When you meet people that come from Princeton, whether they live in the township or whether they live in the city, we all join ourselves together as members of Princeton. We send our kids to the same schools. We attend the same churches. We are this community. We want to grow together. When I say that, everybody works together except for 8 elected officials. I will bridge the gap to have everyone work together for the one thing that prospers everybody, which is growth. Growing together, just like at school, just like with our kids. That happens, and it can happen. The commitment from me as your next mayor will be to work together with everyone, to work together with our city council members, whoever they might be, and to work with our neighbors in the same way. I believe this community has asked themselves for new leadership. I have had tremendous support, not only from the people in this room, but people on the internet and people that I've met. They want to see a different leadership that has a face that looks like this, with a little bit less wrinkles and a little bit more enthusiasm and a little bit more energy to get the job done. I thank you guys for everybody coming out, and I thank the people of this room. My other commitment is on October 11th, I had met with Xcel Energy. Xcel Energy came to our community because they want to help us lower the rate of utilities for everyone in our community. The mayor was invited to the meeting at K-Bob Cafe. City council was. The only ones that showed up was myself and Mr. Reynolds. Xcel Energy has great ideas to help us lower our rate of utilities in town, and that possibly can happen. My commitment is to get them here in front of us at city council so we can review those items and we can figure out what we could do to lower the rate of utilities in town. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Brad. Thank you, Paul. I am going to see if Karen, if we have a couple questions that order. Yes, thank you. Scott? Let me just go see if there were some questions that were written down, okay?
What can you do others? Are there any others that? No? All right. May I ask a question? I need to have it written down. Okay. Would you like to just step out real quick? No problem. Part of the reason that we have you write them down is so that people can maintain that anonymity. Some people are always a little nervous about asking questions directly. In this way, if there are concerns or issues, they are not directed from any one individual. I guess maybe I'll just read these here. Are you, I don't know who starts this one. Is it Brad? Brad? Okay, Brad. Are you aware of some of the different services that the PUC provides in addition to serving electric and water? And if so, can you please elaborate on those?
The services that Princeton Public Utility provides for our community is they put up our Christmas lights at a cost savings of what they say was $30,000. Technically, nothing in this world is for free. Smart people understand that and know that. We are paying for that on our bill, but they will say that they provide that for free. They also will talk about other items that they do through meter servicing and going through our community. The staff at Princeton Public Utilities are amazing. The hardest working employee we have in our entire city is Cindy. That answers. She's the first contact point at Princeton Public Utilities. That woman is never, every time I've ever called there and anybody's ever said this, that woman is so cheerful and so excited to be in that position. And that's an asset. Princeton Public Utility employees are an asset to our community. I believe management needs to change at Princeton Public Utilities. I asked as a commitment to you guys, we need 5 PUC board members. Why is every board in our city, whether it's the Airport Advisory Board, the EDA, Planning Commission, they're all 5 members. But our mayor continues to keep it 3 members. My commitment to you is to have a more diverse PUC board with 5 members just like at Elk River Municipal Utilities. I put it in the packet.
Brad, Paul?
What was the question again, please?
Okay, then, hold it back up again. Are you aware of some of the services the PUC provides in addition to servicing electric and water? And can you elaborate?
Oh, I absolutely am. Our public utilities workers are very diligent about getting out in all kinds of weather when there's electrical problems and our lines are down. I can't remember a time in recent years that our power's been out more than 1 or 2 hours when it's gone down. Now, if we were to go to an outside company, just look at the news. How many times or how long are people out of electricity in the cities? 2, 3, 4 days. I remember a time back in the 80s when we had straight line winds come through the city of Princeton, and our power was back up and running. The townships were down for 3, 4 days. We had people coming to town asking if they could put their perishables in refrigerators at the Midland Co-op down there because they had a whole line of refrigerators. And of course, we did that. We allowed that to happen. PUC, you know, in a whole, they do a good job of what they're doing. To go to an outside company, and to go to a 5-member board, it's state statute that states 3 members on a PUC board. It's not 5. Elk River got it by having their legislature take it to the legislature and ask for amendment to that statute so that they could have 5. But one of the reasons they did that is because, well, Elk River is 20,000 more people than we have. And they felt it was time to go to a 5-member board at that point.
Thank you. That question.
This next question, I think refers back to comments made about the need for affordable housing or not lack of the need. Senior housing incomes vary for all seniors, so it is hard to find livable housing under certain circumstances. How would you address this issue?
We absolutely need affordable housing in this city. We absolutely do. There are people, unfortunately, we do have people living on the streets that need affordable housing. They need to find it. So building this 16-unit apartment is a good start, but it's only a start. Do we need other housing? Absolutely. We need high-end housing. And that'll bring more people into our city. If we had a place to put high-end housing, they'd be here. But yes, affordable housing, we absolutely need it.
Same thing on affordable housing, the mayor said. There is a need for it in our community, but at the same time, you have to have higher end homes to help offset the difference. Low income housing will bring good people to our community, but it doesn't bring the tax revenue to our community like a housing development like 91 homes would bring. You have to grow our tax base so we can take that money and spend it on Main Street. We can spend it on redoing roads and going through that process. And yes, we do have affordable housing here in town. It is hard to find because we have to also provide lower taxes. We need to work harder at lowering our taxes here in Mille Lacs County and here in Princeton. We have every availability to do that locally right here in Princeton. We just have to grow and build in the Mille Lacs County side.
Thank you.
This next one is asking what things are available for our teens to participate in and enjoy in this community. Much of it is for older families and individuals.
Brad.
I grew up here as a teenager. There's lots of things to do if you will just set down your iPhone and get out there. We have the Rum River. I can't even tell you how many times I've canoed down that Rum River, and it is an absolute blast. I have fun. Bike trails. I'm all for the new bike trail or the Great Northern Trail coming to our community. I think it should have been paid for in a different way through park dedication fees and new developments. We don't have them, and so the only way we were able to build the Great Northern Trail was to raise taxes. They'll call it a franchise fee, but at the end of the day, it's a tax on the people. We are paying for that when the new people that would come to our community, that want to come here, would pay for, but we're paying for that. I do think that the time has changed. Obviously, when I was a teenager, I had one thing that plugged into the wall. It was a lamp, and I had a pedal bike, and that's what we did. I was a North End kid. My parents lived up there. I basically biked every single road in this town throughout, maybe not as much on the south side, but a lot on the north side when I was a kid growing up. And I also do think things have changed for parents. Sports are not just a season anymore. Sports are year round. We find parents working their normal job and also working a part-time job, chasing their kid around, whether it's baseball, otherwise football, the same thing. All of those sports are going longer than they had in the past. And so working harder at getting kids involved and active in our local sports and working on building them up will also do that. Like I said, I think like growth, people want to come here. They want to do business here. We have a great community. We have our own hospital. We've got our own school district. We've got Highway 95. We've got 169. We have all of the great things that people want in our community.
Brad, Paul?
Question again, please.
Our teens are always looking for things to do in our community. Things here seem to be designed more for the older and the family members.
Right. Community education has some great programs out there for younger boys and girls and teenage children. Yeah, can we, as we develop our parks and make more availability of maybe a boat landing or a canoe landing or a fishing pier, and some of the things I did as a kid. I was on the river numerous times. That's where I fished, on the river. That's where my dad took us fishing all the time, on the river. So I've spent a lot of time on this river, and yeah, it's a great asset to the community. Back many years ago, this was a logging community. They floated logs down our river. So yeah, the river has a lot of history for this city. So as people move into the city and we develop more parks and use our franchise fee to help develop them parks, we are going to see, I think, more things for the kids to do.
All right. I had other questions I have are all repeat ones from what has already been asked. So with that in mind, I would like to let Tracy take back the floor here.
All right. Well, thank you, Brad. Thank you, Paul. We appreciate you answering the questions and being here tonight. This concludes the second half of the forum. The Princeton Area Chamber would like to thank all the candidates for your participation, the City of Princeton for allowing us to use your facilities, and the school district for having us live stream this event. Let your voice be heard. The Chamber very much encourages all voters to exercise your right to vote. So please get out there and vote. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Karen.
Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Paul.
Not that old, Brad.
Well, let's just say, yep, you were driving before I was born.
Yeah. Probably spent more time in the service before you were born.
You did that too. Thanks for doing this. Yeah, I was really happy that you got all set up and she got it into better, but yeah, I appreciate it.
Yeah, you guys were quite well on those 2 minutes, so good.